Captain Vex Tehran reclined in his command seat, extending his forearms in an exaggerated stretch and feigning a yawn while observing the small, verdant planet displayed on the view screen. The reconnaissance craft, Silent Observer Asterisk, had been tracking this remote world for almost 3 standard cycles, and frankly, his cranial ridges were aching from boredom. Another day observing the hairless primates scurry about their insignificant mudball, he murmured, drumming his clawed digits on the armrest. Commander Nyera, any developments warranting my invaluable attention? Commander Nyera Zev, his second-in-command and the sole crew member who endured his sardonic nature, scarcely glanced up from her data terminal. Nothing that would pique the interest of one with your sophisticated sensibilities, Captain, she responded, her tone saturated with reciprocal sarcasm. Merely the usual territorial squabbles, resource depletion, and rudimentary efforts at space exploration. They refer to those tin can contraptions as spacecraft? Vex scoffed, gesturing toward a satellite passing below. My first hatchling crafted superior playthings from discarded food rations. The bridge crew exchanged surreptitious, knowing looks but preserved their professional demeanor. Captain Tehran's disdainful attitude toward lesser species was well known throughout the Calaxian scout fleet, yet none could dispute his efficacy as a reconnaissance officer. His reports were invariably comprehensive, albeit tinged by his distinctive viewpoint. Retrieve the military evaluation again, Vex instructed, imbibing noisily from a nutrient pouch. I require amusement before my hibernation cycle. The holographic display shimmered into existence, showcasing Earth's various military installations, weapon systems, and defensive capabilities. Vex perused the data with nonchalant disregard, periodically chortling at what he deemed primitive technology. Observe this: combustion-fueled propulsion, physical projectile weaponry. These humans are practically still clashing rocks together. He threw his head back in laughter, spilling some of his purple nutrient fluid down his uniform. And the Empire deems them a potential threat? What a squandering of our precious resources! Commander Nyera approached, her expression more serious. With respect, Captain, their pace of technological advancement is notable. Data indicates their military capabilities have quadrupled in just the last century of their time. Pfft. Vex dismissed her concern with a wave of his lower left arm. By the time they develop anything remotely menacing, my great-grandspawn will be commanding this vessel. High Command is merely being excessively cautious, as always. He rose, his 7-foot scaled frame extending to its full height, and ambled to the observation dome. Earth rotated slowly beneath them, their cloaking technology safeguarding against detection by any rudimentary human systems. From this vantage point, the cities appeared as minuscule, glittering specks against the continents. You know the issue with High Command? Vex inquired, not genuinely anticipating a response. They've never personally encountered these species. They simply peruse reports and become apprehensive. However, I've scrutinized these humans for 3 cycles now. They're fragmented, territorial, aggressive toward their own kind. They can barely cooperate sufficiently to function as a planetary society, let alone constitute a threat to the Calaxian Empire. He pressed a clawed finger against the transparent dome, tracing a continent's outline. Furthermore, they're so delicate. 2 arms, 2 legs, no protective scales, no secondary heart, no backup nervous system. 1 small puncture, and they exude their crimson fluids until they expire. Pathetic. Commander Nyera joined him at the dome, her expression contemplative. The assessment team is scheduled to arrive tomorrow. What will you convey to them? Vex's mouth twisted into what approximated a smile in his species, a predatory exhibition of pointed teeth that would have petrified any human observer. I shall inform them precisely of my observations. A rudimentary species, unworthy of the fuel expenditure required for conquest. If the Empire desires to annex this planet, we could accomplish it with a single battle group. He chuckled, turning away from Earth with a dismissive air. But truly, why expend the effort? There's nothing here of value. Little did Captain Vex Terran realize just how devastatingly erroneous his evaluation would turn out to be. Captain, we have a situation. Lieutenant K burst onto the bridge, his secondary breathing gills flaring in agitation. Vex Terran barely glanced up from his entertainment tablet. Unless the humans have abruptly developed faster than light travel, I'm not interested. It's the assessment team, sir. They've gone planet-side. That secured his attention. Vex's cranial ridge flared in alarm as he sprang to his feet. What, without authorization? Without appropriate containment protocols, are they utterly devoid of intellect? The view screen switched to a real-time feed from a location humans called Montana, a sparsely populated region with minimal surveillance infrastructure. 3 Calaxian scout officers, clad in stealth suits, were nearing a small dwelling nestled among tall vegetation. "Patch me through to their commander immediately!" Vex bellowed, his scales darkening with fury. Commander Niera worked frantically at her console. "They're obstructing communications, sir. Standard assessment team protocol once they've committed to specimen acquisition." Specimen acquisition? Oh, no, no, no. Vex slammed all 4 fists onto his command console. "We are here to observe asterisk, not interact. My directives were explicit." But it was too late. On the screen, the assessment team had already infiltrated the dwelling. Sounds of disarray, a human female's scream, and then, most alarmingly, the high-pitched wail of a human offspring. "They're seizing a child!" Vex's voice descended to a horrified whisper. Of all the imprudent, reckless... The feed displayed the team hurrying back to their small shuttlecraft, a squirming bundle secured within a containment field. The human child, a small female with vibrant red cranial fur, couldn't have been older than 6 Earth years. Her face was distorted in terror, tears coursing down her cheeks as she shrieked for her mother. That's when they all heard it, a sound that caused every Calaxian on the bridge to freeze in primal, instinctive dread. The child wore a small device on her wrist, now emitting a piercing signal. "What is that?" Vex demanded, his voice constricted. Lieutenant K's voice trembled as he replied, "It appears to be some form of distress beacon, sir." Commander Nera's fingers danced across her console. "It's broadcasting on multiple frequencies, military and civilian. The signal, it's ubiquitous, and it contains the child's identity, location coordinates, and..." She paused, her yellow eyes widening. "Biometric data indicating distress and fear." The assessment team's shuttle had already docked with their larger vessel, which was now breaking orbit, heading for the rendezvous point. "Track them," Vex commanded, his voice lethally calm, "and initiate continuous monitoring of all Earth communication channels. I want to know precisely how the humans react to this." On the screen, the child's mother stood before her home, screaming her daughter's name into the night sky. "Lucy! Lucy!" But Lucy was already halfway to the upper atmosphere, her wrist beacon relentlessly broadcasting across every communication network on planet Earth. Vex slumped back into his command chair. Those imbeciles have no comprehension of what they've just instigated. "Du Captain, you need to observe this." Commander Niera's voice was uncharacteristically subdued. Vex dragged himself out of his agitated pacing. 6 hours had elapsed since the child's abduction, and he'd been composing increasingly apocalyptic reports to send to High Command regarding the assessment team's reckless actions. "What now?" he snapped. The main view screen split into multiple feeds, each displaying different locations across Earth. What Vex witnessed caused his primary heart to skip a beat. "That's not feasible," he whispered. Every major military installation on the planet had erupted into frenzied activity. Naval vessels were departing ports at emergency speeds, aircraft were launching in massive numbers, and ground vehicles were deploying from bases worldwide. Space launch facilities were preparing rockets at an unprecedented pace. Are they mobilizing their entire global military over a single offspring? Vex couldn't believe what he was witnessing. Lieutenant K, monitoring Earth communications, turned from his station. "Sir, they're referring to it as Protocol Amber. It appears to be a pre-existing emergency response specifically designed for child abductions. However, the scale, they've never activated it globally before." "The coordination is unexpected," Niera added, unable to conceal the concern in her voice. "Nations that our intelligence designated as hostile to each other are sharing military resources and intelligence. The view screen displayed American and Russian generals in the same command center, Chinese and Indian naval vessels forming joint search patterns, and European and Middle Eastern air forces establishing coordinated patrol zones. Their communication channels are inundated with the child's information, Lieutenant K continued. They're calling her Little Red. Every human with any form of receiving device now knows her name, her face, and that something abducted her from her home. Another officer called out, "Sir, their orbital assets are being repositioned. Surveillance satellites, space telescopes, everything they possess is being directed to search for anomalies." Vex sagged into his command chair, observing in disbelief as the species he'd dismissed as disorganized and primitive demonstrated a level of global cooperation that would have impressed even the High Council of the Calaxian Empire. "They've suspended all commercial air traffic worldwide," Naira reported, her voice hollow with shock. "Their entire planet is now operating under unified military control. I've never never observed anything akin to this in any species we've studied." On one screen, a human female in a military uniform stood behind a podium, her face set in grim determination as she addressed her planet. "To whomever has taken one of our children, you have committed the gravest misjudgment of your existence. There is nowhere in this universe you can conceal yourselves. We are pursuing our daughter, and we will not cease until she is returned." The communications officer's voice cracked as he translated the subsequent transmission. "They're informing their population that first contact with an alien species has transpired, and that the aliens have pilfered a child, sir. The humans are now operating under the assumption that they are at war." Vex stared at the screens depicting the unprecedented mobilization of Earth's military might, all for a solitary human offspring. "What have we wrought?" he whispered. "With all due deference, Grand Admiral, you're not perceiving what I'm perceiving," Vex practically shouted at the holographic projection of his superior. Grand Admiral Zelkar, resplendent in his ceremonial battle armor, looked down his elongated snout at Vex with thinly veiled disdain. The four other members of the Imperial Strategic Command hovered as smaller holograms around him, their expressions ranging from ennui to amusement. "Captain Terron," the Grand Admiral's voice rumbled with authority, "your agitation over a primitive species tantrum is acknowledged, but unwarranted. Humans possess no spacefaring military capability. Their response, while admittedly intriguing from an anthropological perspective, poses *0* threat to our assessment team, or the Empire." Vex ran his claws over his head ridges in frustration. "You misunderstand. They've unified their entire planet's military forces in 6 hours. Species that were poised to obliterate each other yesterday are now coordinating global search patterns. This degree of cooperation is unparalleled." Strategic Commander Pel X, notorious for her hardline views on lesser species, emitted a trilling laugh. "How endearing! The primitive maternal instinct at a societal scale. Perhaps we should procure more of their young for examination?" "No!" Vex shouted, then immediately regretted his outburst. "I mean, with respect, Commander, that would be profoundly imprudent." Grand Admiral Kor leaned forward, his holographic form expanding. "Captain Terron, perhaps you've expended an excessive amount of time observing these creatures. You appear to have developed an emotional affiliation with them." "I have developed an appropriate apprehension for the Empire's interests," Vex retorted stiffly. "What precisely are High Command's intentions for Earth? I believe I possess a right to know, given my position." The 5 superior officers exchanged glances before Admiral Kor sighed. "Very well. Earth has been designated for Phase 1 colonization within the next 10 cycles. Their mineral resources and biological diversity render it a desirable acquisition. The assessment team's mission was merely to corroborate your reports concerning their military capabilities, or lack thereof." "And now?" Vex inquired. "Now, they'll return their specimen for study, and we proceed as planned. This global tantrum will be noted in the final assessment, but alters nothing. After all," the Grand Admiral's mouth stretched into a cruel smile, "what precisely do you envision these humans can accomplish about it?" As the holographic conference concluded, Vex turned back to his view screen, observing Earth's military forces swarming like irate insects across their planet. "I believe we're on the verge of discovering," he murmured. Dot. "Multiple objects approaching the assessment vessel at considerable velocity," Lieutenant K shouted, his normally blue scales paling to a sickly gray. Vex rushed to the tactical display. "Implausible! How did they track the child's beacon?" Commander Naira interjected. "They've been triangulating its position for the past 12 hours, and Captain, these aren't their rudimentary rockets." The tactical display showcased 20 sleek objects moving at speeds that shouldn't have been attainable with Earth's known technology. They had emerged from a concealed facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a facility that hadn't appeared in any of their reconnaissance data. "Magnify," Vex ordered, his voice strained. The screen displayed angular black craft with no discernible propulsion system, no exhaust, no heat. Signature, nothing that elucidated how they were moving so rapidly or operating beyond Earth's atmosphere. "Those aren't in our intelligence reports," Vex whispered. "How long have they possessed these?" The communications officer interjected. "Sir, encrypted transmission from the assessment vessel. They're under assault. They're under assault." The view screen shifted to display the assessment team's ship, a mid-sized research vessel with minimal defensive capabilities. The human craft had encircled it in a flawless tactical formation, one that Vex recognized from the Calaxian Fleet Academy's advanced strategy manuals. "They're employing a Zorian encirclement pattern," Naira gasped. That's a formation our analysts devised." Before anyone could process this shocking revelation, the human vessels opened fire, not with primitive missiles or projectiles, but with precision energy weapons that sliced through the assessment vessel's shields as if they weren't even present. How? Vex roared, observing as the supposedly superior Calaxian technology faltered against weaponry that shouldn't exist on such a young world. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies," Lieutenant K reported. They're demanding the return of the child." On the screen, the assessment vessel attempted evasive maneuvers, but the human craft anticipated every move, maintaining their lethal formation with uncanny precision. "These pilots," Naira whispered, "they're flying with a level of coordination that implies neural linking. Or they're simply that proficient," Vex finished grimly. The communications officer suddenly straightened. "Captain, the assessment vessel they're surrendering." Sure enough, the Calaxian research ship had powered down its engines and weapon systems, the universal signal of surrender throughout the known galaxy. "The humans are boarding them," Naira reported, unable to suppress the awe in her voice. "They've circumvented the airlock security protocols in mere seconds. How did they even comprehend our technology?" Vex watched in stunned silence as black-suited human figures swarmed through the assessment vessel with military precision. Their movements were coordinated, efficient, and terrifyingly familiar. "They combat. Like us," he finally stated. "Not like primitives discovering space travel, but like warriors who have been engaged in this for centuries." On the screen, a human soldier in distinctive armor emerged from the vessel, cradling the small, red-haired child protectively against their chest. But the other human craft immediately moved to form a defensive escort formation. "Mission accomplished," the lieutenant translated from the human transmission. "Little Red secured. Returning to Earth. Bring our daughter home." Vex collapsed into his command chair, staring at the tactical display where the human vessels were already breaking formation to return to their concealed base. "We've committed a grievous error," he stated. The Imperial warship, Asterisk. Inevitable Conquest Asterisk emerged from hyperspace with a thunderous displacement of energy that momentarily outshone Earth's sun. Grand Admiral Carr stood on its bridge, his earlier dismissive attitude entirely absent, as he glared at the holographic display of the small, blue planet. "Display it again," he commanded, his voice lethally quiet. Vex nodded to Commander Niera, who replayed the battle footage. The Grand Admiral and his staff watched in silence as the human vessels executed their flawless assault, disabled a superior Calaxian ship, and retrieved their abducted offspring, all with technology that should have been centuries beyond their developmental timeline. Elucidate this, Carr demanded, all four of his eyes fixated on Vex. I cannot, Admiral, Vex admitted. My reconnaissance data revealed nothing concerning these capabilities. They have manifestly been concealing their true technological strata. Strategic Commander Pel-X, no longer laughing, stepped forward. The assessment team survivors report that the humans comprehended our airlock systems, our shield frequencies, even our communication protocols, almost as if they've encountered our species previously, Carr concluded, his scales darkening with rage. Or someone has been disseminating Imperial technology to them. The Strategic Command fell silent, the implications hanging heavily in the air. This betrayal from within was virtually unthinkable, yet the evidence suggested it. There's more, Vex stated reluctantly. Following the child's rescue, they broadcast this message on all frequencies, employing our own encryption algorithms. He played the transmission. It's a stern-faced human in a military uniform spoke directly to the camera. To the species who endeavored to abduct one of our children, this was your sole admonition. We have returned your survey team, minus those who directly participated in the kidnapping. They are being detained for transgressions against humanity. Any subsequent incursion into Earth space will be deemed an act of war. We are cognizant of your empire and its intentions. We elect to remain pacific, but make no mistake, we stand prepared. Admiral Carr's expression was inscrutable as the message concluded. How many vessels do they possess akin to the ones we observed? Unknown, Vex replied. The facility they launched from was shielded from our sensors. There could be dozens, or thousands. For the first time in his extensive military career, Grand Admiral Zell Carr appeared uncertain. We require additional intelligence before the High Council can determine how to proceed. The colonization plan is provisionally suspended. Vex fought to conceal his relief as Carr turned to his strategic staff. Humanity is no longer classified as a pre-spacefaring civilization, the Admiral declared. As of this moment, they are designated a potential Level 3 threat to Imperial security. Vex couldn't tear his eyes away from the view screen as he observed the humans prepare their rescue and operation. After detecting the assessment vessel's location, Earth had transformed into a hive of coordinated military activity, unlike anything Calaxian intelligence had ever documented. They've established a unified command structure in under 24 hours, Commander Niera reported, her voice betraying her professional admiration. Observe this communication network they've created. The tactical display showcased a web of encrypted transmissions connecting military installations across the globe. Nations that had been bitter adversaries for centuries were now sharing intelligence, resources, and personnel without hesitation. Patch into their command center, Vex instructed. I desire to hear how they're coordinating this. The main view screen switched to a massive underground facility that Calaxian intelligence had somehow overlooked entirely. Hundreds of humans from diverse nations and military branches worked in perfect harmony, their focus unwavering. At the center stood a diverse group of officers surrounding a holographic projection of the assessment vessel's location in orbit. We possess one opportunity at this, a human female with silver rank insignia addressed the group. The Black Horizon Squadron is our optimal option for high-orbit interception. General Mackenzie, a male with distinctive facial hair, responded, My Russian cosmonauts possess the most experience with Zog combat. They should lead the boarding party. Agreed, General Volkov, and the Chinese stealth technology on their new orbital platforms will furnish the cover required for approach. Vex watched in mounting disbelief as traditional rivals seamlessly integrated their most advanced, previously clandestine military capabilities into a single operation. This defies everything we comprehend about human psychology, Lieutenant K muttered. Our behavioral studies indicated they're pathologically territorial and distrustful of genetic variants within their own species. It appears, Naira replied softly, that the abduction of a child supersedes those propensities. On the screen, a dark-skinned officer stepped forward. Indian Cyber Division has finalized the analysis of the alien vessel's communication signature. We can disrupt their transmissions for precisely 8.3 minutes, sufficient time for approach and boarding. Brazilian Aerospace has modified our atmospheric scrambling technology, another officer added. It should mask the heat signatures of our vessels during launch. A younger human female approached the central group. Dr. Rivera, head of the xenobiology analysis team, we've processed the genetic material abandoned at the abduction site. The aliens appear susceptible to a specific frequency of ultraviolet radiation that doesn't harm human tissue. I've modified our tactical gear accordingly. Vex's jaw literally dropped. They collected genetic samples and analyzed them that expeditiously? The view screen shifted again to display a massive hangar where sleek black spacecraft were being prepared. Teams of engineers from a dozen different nations worked on the vessels, integrating technologies that had clearly been kept secret from each other until now. Those ships, Nayara whispered. The design elements suggest reverse-engineered technology, X concluded grimly. But from asterisk where asterisk? We've never encountered humans prior to this mission. In the hangar, crews were loading specialized equipment onto the vessels. The camera zoomed in on soldiers receiving final briefings. Elite fighters from different nations, standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces set with identical determination. The mission is straightforward, a commanding officer addressed them. Enter, retrieve Lucy, exit. If they resist, you are authorized to employ all necessary force. Of course, if they surrender, you will accept, but under no circumstances. Are we abandoning that child in alien hands? Is that comprehended? Yes, sir, the unified response reverberated through the hangar. A small group of soldiers was receiving particular attention, a mixed gender squad wearing distinctive black armor with no national insignia. Who are they? Vex inquired, gesturing to this elite unit. Lieutenant K consulted his intelligence database. Unknown, sir. They don't correspond to any known Earth military organization in our records. On the screen, this mysterious squad was being briefed separately by a stern-faced woman with intelligence insignia. She handed their leader a small device. This will override their airlock protocols. The frequency codes originated from... Well, let's simply state we've been preparing for this day longer than they realize. Vex leaned forward, his scales prickling with alarm. What did she just articulate? But before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical officer's voice was taut with stress. Captain, multiple launches detected from Earth. They're pursuing the assessment vessel. Commander Niera's expression was solemn. They're not merely pursuing the vessel, Captain. They're pursuing their child. And based on what we're observing, they'll dismantle the entire galaxy to retrieve her. Grand Admiral Kor had rendered his decision. The rogue human vessels that had assaulted the assessment ship would serve as the ideal pretext for accelerating the colonization timeline. The massive Calaxian battle fleet had emerged from hyperspace in Earth's outer solar system, prepared to demonstrate the true might of the Empire. Tactical Formation Omega-6, Carr commanded from the bridge of the Asterisk, Inevitable Conquest Asterisk. Prepare to launch fighter squadrons and activate planetary subjugation protocols. 20 Calaxian warships maneuvered into attack formation, their weapon systems powering up as they prepared to make an example of the upstart humans who dared to defy the Empire. Sir, his tactical officer called out, we're detecting movement from Earth. They're rudimentary response ships, no doubt. Carr laughed. Display it on screen. I desire to witness their pathetic attempt at defense before we obliterate them. The view screen flickered to life and every Chalaxian on the bridge fell silent. Rising from Earth's atmosphere was not a handful of vessels, but hundreds. No, asterisk, thousands, asterisk. A massive armada of ships in all shapes and sizes, from small fighters to enormous capital ships that rivaled the Asterisk, Inevitable Conquest, Asterisk itself. They moved with precision and purpose, forming battle groups and assuming strategic positions throughout Earth's orbital space. Impossible, Strategic Commander Pax whispered. Our intelligence indicated nothing akin to this. Vex, observing from his own ship, felt a mixture of vindication and terror. Error? They've been concealing? He murmured. All this time, they've been concealing their true capabilities. Admiral Carr recovered swiftly. It alters nothing. They may possess more ships than anticipated, but our technology is superior. All vessels advance and... Sir, the communications officer interjected, we're detecting massive energy buildups from Earth's surface and orbital installations. On the tactical display, previously concealed defense platforms were powering up all across Earth's surface and in orbit. Weapon systems that dwarfed anything in the Calaxian arsenal were targeting the Imperial fleet with lethal precision. Will position, Carr barked, suddenly cautious. Too late. The human struck first. Synchronized energy beams lanced out from multiple planetary defense installations, converging on the smallest Calaxian vessel. Its shields flared brilliant blue for 3 seconds before collapsing entirely. The ship itself followed a moment later, disintegrating in a spectacular explosion. "Return fire!" Carr roared. The Imperial fleet launched its attack, only to observe in disbelief as their weapons fire was absorbed by previously invisible energy shields protecting Earth and its fleet. Then the human armada moved, not in panic or disarray, but with the coordinated precision of a predator that had been lying in wait. Fighter squadrons swarmed around the Imperial vessels, targeting weapon systems and engines with surgical strikes. Larger human ships engaged the Calaxian warships directly, their energy weapons slicing through advanced shields with terrifying ease. They comprehend our shield frequencies, Commander Pax realized too late. They know precisely where to strike us. All vessels retreat, Admiral Kuther ordered, his earlier arrogance evaporated in the face of humanity's true military might. But the humans weren't finished. As the Sea-Axian fleet attempted to disengage, a new type of vessel emerged from behind Earth's moon. Massive ships with distinctive propulsion systems unlike anything previously observed. "Sir," Vex's communications officer reported, her voice trembling, "the humans are broadcasting on all channels. They state those ships were designed specifically to pursue and disable Calaxian hyperspace capabilities." The message that followed was straightforward. "You arrived at our home. You pilfered our child. You menaced our world. This concludes now." Yes, what followed wasn't merely a defeat. It was an annihilation. The vaunted Imperial fleet, pride of the Calaxian Empire, was systematically dismantled by a species they had dismissed as primitive just days earlier. "Recording begins," the automated system announced. "Final assessment report, Sol System, Planet Earth. Reporting officer, Captain Vex Terron." Vex sat alone in his quarters aboard the Asterisk Silent Observer Asterisk, one of only 3 Calaxian vessels that had survived the catastrophic engagement with Earth's forces. The Imperial flagship, Asterisk Inevitable Conquest Asterisk, was now nothing more than radioactive debris scattered across Earth's outer solar system. Grand Admiral Carr and most of the Strategic Command had perished in the battle. Vex cleared his throat, his scales still bearing the discoloration of stress and injury. "To the High Council of the Calaxian Empire, I submit this final report and strategic recommendation concerning the species known as humans and their home planet, Earth." He paused, gathering his thoughts. How does one elucidate to an empire that has subjugated 1,000 worlds that they had just encountered their match? The assessment of Earth as a pre-spacefaring, technologically primitive world was devastatingly erroneous. Evidence now suggests humans have not only attained advanced spacefaring capabilities, but have deliberately concealed their true technological strata from external observation. Vex activated a holographic display, showcasing footage from the battle. Earth's massive fleet emerging from concealed facilities, their devastatingly effective weaponry, their flawless coordination. Human military capabilities surpass Imperial threat assessment parameters by a minimum factor of 7. Their technological development in weapons, shields, and propulsion appears to have followed a divergent evolutionary path from our own, rendering our standard countermeasures ineffectual. Then he took a deep breath. But most significantly, humans exhibit a psychological characteristic that defies our prior comprehension of sentient behavior. While they maintain territorial divisions and internal conflicts, they are capable of instantaneous, complete unification when menaced, particularly when their offspring are imperiled. Vex's voice grew firm as he delivered his final assessment. Based on the catastrophic losses sustained by our fleet and the demonstrated capabilities of human forces, If I strongly recommend that the Calaxian Empire designate Earth and the Sol system as a Class 1 restricted zone, G with no further contact endeavors authorized under any circumstances. He leaned closer to the recorder, his voice dropping to emphasize his subsequent words. The humans possess a saying that their intelligence operatives disseminated to me prior to permitting our retreat. They arrived for one of our children, and we brought the might of Earth to bear. Ponder this, esteemed council members. If this is their response to the abduction of a solitary child, envision their response to a full-scale invasion. Vex deactivated the recording and reclined in his chair, gazing out at the stars. Somewhere out there on that small blue planet, a red-haired human child named Lucy was secure at home with her family, while her entire species stood vigilant, observing the skies. The Calaxian Empire would never return to Earth. Vex had ensured that.